What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest, the Louisville men's basketball podcast, part of the Field of 68 Media Network. I am Jeff Greer, your friend, your host. Happy to be back with you for another episode here in the summertime. This is when everybody goes into their corners and puts in work, and this is a huge summer for a lot of programs, but especially Louisville, which is trying to bounce back from just narrowly missing the NCAA tournament, incorporating a handful of newcomers. They've got a promoted director of basketball operations, Kahil Fennell, to assistant coach. He's our guest actually today. They also added, of course, Ross McMains as an assistant coach. So some changes in staff, some changes in personnel, major changes to their offense, I should say, and a lot of work going now to get ready for the fall and for the start of the season. To assess that, to talk a little bit more about the process, the summertime, and the work that has been put in already, the workouts that have come over the last month or so, we talked to Kahil Fennell, who is a really interesting guy. Majored in history in college, played in two different places, played in Pennsylvania for, I think, a year, and then transferred to the University of Redlands or Redlands, depending on where you're from. I say Redlands. Sorry, that's just a New England accent. But a famous program for, at the time, playing this insanely high-scoring, fast-paced style. And you heard about it. They made headlines for the style of play that they had. And Kahil was part of that. So it's kind of fun to talk a little bit about that and apply it to this upbeat, attempting to play at a faster pace now for Louisville, play with a little bit more urgency as they incorporate some of the things that Ross McMain teaches. I think we kind of forget, hey, Kahil has this experience too. And of course, Mack's teams with Mike Pegues on staff at Xavier played with some more pace than they have at Louisville so far. So lots to get to there. We talk, of course, about Kahil's background and his story coming up after leaving the game for a little while, getting back into coaching. He's had a fast rise, and I think you'll see why. He's a really sharp guy and still young. He's approaching his birthday, as we mentioned in the podcast. Before we get to it, just a couple house cleaning issues. As we always try to say, make sure that if you have not subscribed to the podcast, Floyd Street's Finest, and rate and review it. If you do that, that helps other Louisville fans find this. And that's what we're going for. We want other people to listen to this. Of course, even you don't have to be a Louisville fan to listen to this. If you're interested at all in hearing from coaches and players, media people, whoever else you want to hear from about Louisville, if you're a conference rival, if you want to hate listen, however you want to consume this, by all means, please do. Just make sure that you rate and review it and tell them that I sent you. Okay? Maybe that'll help. Also, make sure you hit the YouTube channel for Field of 68. Subscribe to it and watch some of the videos. There's great content on there. We've got exciting news to share with you guys probably next episode, maybe 2 episodes from now. Maybe we'll see, to share with the fans here of Floyd Street's Finest. I'm super stoked about that. And yeah, that's about it. Let's enjoy an interview with Kahil Fennell. I hope you enjoyed the interviews with Jared West and Chris Mack so far this summer. And we're just going to keep rolling through interviews as the offseason goes, get a little bit more insight into recruiting as we know more, as things develop here in the next month. Things are about to shake up quite a bit. Or shake clear, I should say, not shake up, but we're going to have a much, much, much better idea of who is really close in for Louisville, who the real serious targets are based on where they go and who they're watching, the staff members, and just how things are heating up and players start picking different schools. Players start saying, hey, these guys are giving me a lot of attention. I like this. We'll see. But the next couple of weeks are going to make a big difference in that process. And then we can talk more and more about that as the summer goes on. Nevertheless, here is our conversation with Kahil Fennell, new assistant coach for Chris Mack at Louisville. All right, we are joined by the one and the only Kahil Fennell. Am I saying that correctly? I feel like everyone mispronounces your last name.
Yeah, I get more wrong with my first name for sure. I mean, one of my brothers called me Kahil till I was about 15. So, yes, it is Kahil Fennell, correct.
There you go. All right. And before we get started, I just learned this in the research before you came on. Your birthday is coming up. So happy early birthday.
What is today? Oh, the first. There you go. Yeah,
Coming up. It's not too
about
far
4
away.
weeks.
Yeah, it's coming up.
I
Birthday
appreciate it.
month. Birthday month for you.
Yeah, you and the research team. Great job.
Yeah, you'll have to celebrate at your various locales that you're going to be hitting here over the next couple of weeks with
Absolutely.
with some good food. We've got a lot to get to, but we'll start with just kind of the things that I think a lot of people definitely will be interested in hearing is your thoughts, I guess, first and foremost on summer workouts. You've had a couple of weeks now with the guys. I'm sure everyone in the coaching business has been itching to have these workouts again, up close and personal, not all of the COVID precautions and all of that stuff. So what has the last couple of weeks been like for the team and what have been your main takeaways so far?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, to your point, I mean, following a COVID year and the restrictions and the inability to get on the floor with our guys, it's been terrific to get our guys back in the mix and, in the weight room and on the floor and getting some player development stuff from an individual basis. And then obviously installing and implementing some of the new offensive philosophies that we're trying to get in place. So that's been awesome. I think beyond that is really doing some of the relationship building with so many new players and newcomers. It's been awesome to get guys face to face. A lot of those guys have never been on campus before they moved here. So really starting to build those relationships to last you through seasons and their careers and hopefully beyond is a special part of this time of year. So it's a big part of the team building thing. And I know, every coach in the country is talking about how excited they are this time of year, how excited they are about their roster and their season and all that kind of stuff. And but our newcomers and our returners have really meshed well. I think they're really working hard, which has been awesome. They have tremendous attitudes and energy and a really open mind. Like the returners especially have a tremendously open mind collectively about what we're doing this new and how we're going to play moving forward. So it's been cool. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Now, I know you knew Ross McMains a little bit before all of this, but what has that addition been like to the staff? Especially, it seems like he's a really energetic guy, good with terminology, but also there's no question that his offensive mind, his player development stuff, that's what his reputation is earned for. But what have your impressions been like now that you're working alongside him every day?
It's been great. I mean, Ross is a friend of mine. Like you said, I've known him for over a year or so now. So bringing in a friend that and like, and you enjoy his company personally is great. But from an impact, how that impacts the program, I think it's going to be massive. I think you mentioned his mind for offense, his skills and his resume and his track record as far as player development. I think those two aspects of his coaching career and his coaching attributes is elite. I truly believe it's world class. So for us to have him here with us is a coup. It's a steal for us. So I'm really excited to have him here. Our players are really excited to have him here. Our recruits are excited about him and what he can provide from a player development standpoint. Our style of play moving forward is going to be really conducive to the NBA. It's going to help us win championships while they're here and then also help them grow for the next level. So I think it's a really overwhelmingly positive thing, and I'm really looking forward to the results.
What was that conversation like? Because so I had Jared West on last week. It finally ran, I think, this week, but and he was talking about how in his initial recruiting process, there was a conversation about, at least part of the conversation was, we want our offense to look different this coming season. We want to make some changes to it. So what was that conversation like before Ross even was on the radar about how you guys wanted to kind of go about changing things?
Yeah, I think a greater emphasis on pace and spacing and really putting pressure on the defenses in different ways and not just a lot less standing and watching by three guys on the floor. So I think implementing those kind of core principles moving forward, whether that was Ross or an additional assistant coach or just myself and Coach McGeese and another guy, that was going to be how we played. And then, fortunately, a guy like Ross is some of the best in the world, literally, at implementing that kind of style of play. And I think he was the best option for it, obviously. So, but, that kind of a new way of thinking and a new way of approaching offense and attacking defenses was how we were going to do it regardless. And I think Ross just checked all the boxes to bring that into play here.
What's been your impression? Surely it has to help to have they're newcomers, but Noah Locke has played a lot of college basketball. Jared West has played a lot of college basketball. L. Ellis has already played 2 years of highly competitive junior college ball. So bringing in guys who, they're new to this team and this school, but they've played a lot of college basketball. How much do you think that helps in trying to coach essentially what is going to be a whole new system, or at least a significant change in system?
Yeah, I'm not so sure how that contributes to the new system, because it's new to them as well. But I just think having them here and their experience, I mean, they've played in the NCAA tournament, they've won games in the NCAA tournament, they've had individual success in that tournament. I think their impact on this program is going to be massive. I think they've shown leadership, they've shown poise, they've shown real skill, they've shown a tremendous work ethic. I think those guys have gotten better even in their short time being on campus. So. And a lot of that is down to just the work that they put in. So what they're going to provide for our program is going to be huge. But I think it's new for them too, right? It's, I think Jared has a little bit of a leg up because, under Coach D'Antoni and Marshall, they ran some NBA concepts there and did a lot of stuff off ball screens and utilizing the 3-point line and things like that. So he has a really good feel for that. He's tremendous in ball screens. You've done a really nice job highlighting that in some of your stuff prior. So, I think they're going to have a tremendous amount of success, but, it's new terminology. You mentioned Ross and his love for words and terminology. I mean, I give him a hard time. He's got some kind of a term for anything, right?
Yes,
I don't care if it's a walk to the filter or waking up in the morning. It's a bingo, it's a zing, it's something. So there's all types of words. So they need to learn that terminology as well. They need to learn that playbook as well. So there's going to be a learning curve for everybody.
I was caught off guard when I confirmed something with him. I think it was like a time that we were going to do the podcast. I forgot. It was purely transactional, and he responded with 2 kiwi emojis, and I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's built a little bit different. He's just
that's been the source of a lot of ridicule. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's ruined a lot of text chains. It's turned into some like emoji fest where somebody will reply with pizza, and it's a joke. So
wow,
we've all had to deal with.
That's brutal. Well, speaking of, let's go here first. I was going to ask you about this a little bit later on, but in reading more about you and your basketball past, you're not completely new to playing a high tempo offense. You played University of Redlands. Was famous for high scoring offense. What was take us through that experience of being a part of that?
It was so strange. I mean, so many of the principles of basketball that you've been taught since you're a little kid just go out the window with our style of play. So Redlands, Grinnell, things like that. It's just a completely. It's almost like you're playing a different sport, right? I mean, you're trapping on makes and misses. You're almost allowing layups. Offensively, schematically, and tactically, we're taking the ball out. Point guard's taking 2 dribbles up the floor, kicking it ahead to a 2 or 3, and he shoots it. And that's really what we're doing. So I gave an interview when I first got the job where it's really my job was to screen because nobody else really had jobs, right? Like the one guy shot it, the one guy passed it, the one guy inbounded it, and I was just the biggest, strongest kid. So I just hit people. So it was unique. It was certainly different. It really leveled the playing field. We played Villanova my senior year. We actually gave them a really good game. We're actually leading for most of the game.
Oh, wow.
But then within our Division III conference, I think we were 500. So everybody had a chance to win a game. Everybody had a chance to lose a game. So it was certainly interesting.
Well, I'm not bringing this up to roast you, Kahil, but I will tell you. So if you research, if you go onto the Los Angeles Times website, I can find old clips from when you were playing at Thousand Oaks High School.
Okay.
So, obviously in my job, you've got to be good at Google and finding good information.
Yeah.
And I found a game story about you knocking down 2 free throws to ice a 2000 sectional playoff game over West Covina.
Okay.
I think with like 6 seconds left, you made 2 big free throws. And your coach was shocked because you were shooting like 45% from the free throw line that season. So what kind of experience, what kind of player were you as a high school kid then that you had ice in your veins, but you weren't a great free throw shooter?
Yeah, I mean, you could have left that anecdote at me just making the free throws to win the games, adding my shooting percentage. Um, what kind of player was I? I get that a lot. I don't know. I think I was, I guess, considered pretty physical. I just was never a very good scorer. I didn't have an eye for the basket. Never shot. Didn't like to shoot very much. More of a willing passer and dirty work guy. So obviously, I wasn't very good.
I wouldn't go that far. That's pretty harsh. But those guys always make great coaches. So there you go. You figured it out.
Remains to be seen.
I think my favorite part of the story of your story that I have learned about, and we've talked about this previously, you actually have a story in coaching that is kind of similar to Chris Mack, that you were kind of out of basketball. You were in medical equipment sales, correct? You were working in a different industry, and you kind of got back into it thinking it was going to be an assistant job as a JV coach to just kind of scratch the itch. And next thing you knew, you kind of just got swept up in it. And here we are. And I always think of, when I hear your story, I think of Mac selling, I think he sold oil tanks or something crazy in Cincinnati. And he got on to a staff and ended up coaching girls high school basketball. But what did that side of life teach you that has helped you now, where you weren't in basketball, you were in a totally different world, and got to experience very different things? How do you apply that experience to what you're doing now, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just being a little bit more experienced and seeing kind of the ways of the world and professional communication and how to handle yourself in a professional manner and have conversations with different kinds of people, right? I think if I just went from college and went directly into coaching, I don't think I'd have near the success, whatever success that is, relatively speaking. But I think I would have been at a disadvantage. I wouldn't have been prepared to kind of compete in these waters if I had just gone straight from college, if I had always been in basketball. I think learning how the world works, like the real world works, has been helpful for me in getting a feel for what reality is. Because in so many ways, the basketball coaching world and the business of basketball is just so strange. I mean, there's things that happen in this business that you can never get away with in the real world. You know what I mean? You can never get away with talking to people the way you do in this business. You can never get away with treating some of the people. It's just a strange, mechanism here. So, but getting a feel for how things work outside of this has been great for me. And, hopefully it's helped me. You mentioned my path, how that mirrors Coach Mack's. I mean, Coach Mack's first job after selling oil was being a director of operations in the ACC.
That's true. That's true. That's fair. That's okay. That's fair.
My first job was in I
just meant more of the sales experience and then getting back into coaching, that both of you had the itch to get back into coaching. So it makes sense. Question. And it was a passion for both of you. I got to ask, because speaking of Mac's path, he coached your wife in high school.
He did.
Which has to have generated an incredible amount of great stories that you now have about Chris that you've heard from your wife. I mean, I've heard great stories about Mount Notre Dame girls basketball.
Yeah. I mean, it really hasn't produced that many stories, believe it or not, man. I mean, it sounds like my wife didn't talk in high school. Like she just kind of went through and played basketball and went home and didn't have conversations with anybody. So it's like, I feel like everybody walked away from their experience with Sarah in high school and just feel like they didn't know her. And it seems like Coach Mack is kind of the same way. It's like, yeah, I coached her. Didn't really have a great feel for who she was, but yeah. But no, she obviously always spoke really highly of Coach and thought he was a great coach at that level, obviously. And then, his mind for the game and his attention to detail and his preparation is as good as anybody's in the country. And I think he's taken that at every step of the way, right? From girls high school to his work as a director of operations to his work as an assistant and now as a head coach. I think everybody that's ever worked with him can say the same thing. So she's always echoed that as well.
I think it was her. I think she was the one who told me about how he was always looking for slights in the newspaper, specifically the newspaper, for anyone to say anything about Mount Notre Dame so that he could use that to motivate them. And my favorite one was this coach for one of their rivals said something totally harmless, but he took it he wanted to use it. So he had the newspaper article, with that article specifically highlighted, he had the sheet, the sports section, like basically paper mache'd over their lockers in the locker room, covering the entire locker room with that highlighted quote that he wanted to piss them off with. So he started early looking for that kind of stuff. That's where that all began.
Yeah, he's a competitive guy, for sure, and
Yeah.
that kind of permeates throughout the program. So yeah, we have an edge to us for sure.
Last couple of things, then, Kahil, I appreciate you doing this with us. I want to go back to so you came to Louisville, first season. Obviously you guys are getting used to the new system, the new program. Well, it's not a new system for Mac, but you're dealing with new players. Then you deal with this crazy COVID off season. I know last summer was a big summer for all of you guys with team unity and trying to speak out on subjects that are obviously important to you. Emotionally, I would assume that your attachment to this program and these players has really significantly grown, having to deal with all of these different things and confront these difficult subjects and talk about it with these young players. Walk me through what that has been like as being one of the leaders and someone who these guys are looking to for guidance on some of these difficult subjects that you guys have had to talk about over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's certainly been a challenging, year or so. I mean, obviously not just for our program and for our players, but, nationally and internationally. So, yeah, I'm not so sure how much they look to me for answers or anything like that. But, I always try to be, a sounding board if they do have questions, if they do want to have some dialogue, or they do want to get something off their chest, or if they feel passionately about something one way or the other, even if they disagree with me or they feel strongly that their voice isn't being heard. I think it's hugely important that all of our guys' voices are heard and they are valued, and they do feel like, they're, how they feel is every bit as significant as the guy next to them. So you're right. It was a tough time, and, going through that with our players, excuse me, and staff was certainly unique, and there were some low moments for sure. But I think collectively, I think everybody handled themselves really, really well. Mm-hmm. I think everybody put their best foot forward. As far as that could have gone left in so many ways. Somebody says something that they might regret on social media or in the media in general, but I think everybody really handled themselves with dignity and pride. And it was really cool to see. I was incredibly proud of our guys.
And you led the way on the acts of kindness and the acts of interacting with the community. Why was that important to you to be involved in that stuff and get involved in that stuff last summer?
I mean, like we talked about, it's such a unique time, challenging time, in our country's. What's going on in the country and like I said, globally. So I'm not so sure if I led the way, but I think just being a part of it and I think the community was hurting in a lot of ways. I think the community, I think there's so much that can be done here locally. It was obviously ground zero with everything going on with Breonna Taylor and how that was handled in the aftermath of that. And, like I said, I certainly didn't lead anything, but I think just trying to do what I could individually to make an impact, no matter how small that was. I just think that's a lot of ways that's paramount to anything. I think if you can just help in ways big and small, hopefully that creates a little bit of a groundswell of momentum, and other people kind of latch onto that, and they can kind of take that into their own communities, or they can help here locally. Mm-hmm. And then I think the more that we can do collectively, the bigger impact we can make, and the stronger the connections that are made in the process. So I'm not so sure how much was done, but I feel really proud of the work that our guys put in. I feel really proud of our community, the way they rallied behind our guys, and it was pretty special to see in some instances.
We watched, in my opinion, Malik Williams emerge as just this vocal leader. I mean, he had been that way, but Kahil, before you got here, he's always been, I don't want to say goofy, but he's always had a good sense of humor. He's been kind of fun to be around, bouncy, just kind of bounces around. But at first it seemed like he tried to kind of, be in the crowd a little bit more. And he has really developed into a big time leader, both on and off the floor. He's been around for a while. it's been an incredible transformation watching him grow and develop over these last few years.
That's great. I mean, Coach Mack tells a story when he recruited him at Xavier out of high school that he was like half asleep on the couch when he was having a conversation. And, you talk about, that moment when he's a high school senior or so, and then to the moments of this past year. And I think that's what it's about, right? I think, in my opinion, that's why you're getting into coaching, is to try to help shepherd that along. Obviously, Malik is so intelligent. He's such a bright kid, and he's experienced, and he's seen a lot in life. He's seen a lot at home at Fort Wayne. He's got a great family, but they've been through a lot in a lot of cases. So he's got life experience, and he's an innately intelligent guy as well. So he just has a really good feel for kind of the ways of the world in a lot of ways. And I think for him to be at the forefront and for him to feel as confident as he did, making public statements and leading our team and leading our group and leading his peers, I think that's special. And to be a part of that journey with him was really cool to watch and really cool to see. And another example of a guy that I was just so proud of, and what he was able to do and how he was able to grow.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal watching him grow up before our eyes. That's why people love college basketball and college sports. You watch these guys come in and they're 18-year-olds and they leave like truly young men ready to enter the world. Last thing then for you, Kahil, this will be your first official cycle going out. I know you already have had a chance to go out recruiting, and I always make the joke, you change the polo, so now you got the Louisville polo on. What's your approach when you go to these events? You're there for hours on end. You go maybe duck out, get some lunch, duck out, get some dinner, unless they're catered in some places. But what's your approach to these summer recruiting trips and how you handle evaluating, but also making sure that you're actually like taking care of yourself and being a normal human being at the same time?
Yeah, I think the self-care and being a normal human being goes out the window, man. I mean, you mentioned ducking out for lunch. I mean, you're really, in reality, you're like smuggling a concession stand hot dog. And you know what I mean? Eating like
that's true,
eating 2-day-old Domino's pizza from the concession stand. So no, like all the dignity and personal care takes a back seat, man. You got to see kids play. So it's long, it's pretty arduous, but it's great. Like being on the road again and watching guys in person and watching young players play, checking body language, seeing how they interact with their teammates, with their coaches, how competitive they are, how nasty they are. Are they willing to mix it up? Are they willing to be physical? Some of those things that you miss on film and miss on these live streams that we've been watching for the past however many years. It's really cool to see that in person. So the opportunity to evaluate guys in person live is really hard to replicate. So it's a huge part of recruiting, as you know, but there's some challenges for your overall well-being for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, just in general, a thank you to the coaches who have never told on any of the media guys who sneak upstairs and grab one of the sandwiches at some of these events, because otherwise we'd be sneaking out. God knows what we'd be eating, but every July, Kahil, until this past July, I swear I gained like 10 pounds in July just from 3 weekend trips, because it was
no question
miserable. So
it's bad.
When I
was at D2, like our recruiting budget was like me driving to driving to Kansas. So it's like you're looking at a 7-hour drive, Slim Jims all over my truck, so I'd put on about 5 to 6 pounds in my jowls. And come home tired and beaten, man, for sure.
Yeah. Driving through Kansas will wear you down.
It will. That's an emotional journey.
Oh, my God. Well, you're officially off the hot seat. I really appreciate some of your time, Kahil. I know it's been a busy summer, and it's only going to get busier. So best of luck out on the trail this month. And hopefully you get to enjoy your birthday at the end of it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kahil.